Move along. Court's not open to the public yet. Officer Dale Pruitt said it without looking up. He was leaning against the security desk in the lobby of the Cuyahoga County Courthouse, a half-eaten granola bar on the counter beside him, arms crossed, voice flat. The kind of voice that had said this 1,000 times and expected 1,000 people to obey it. The woman standing at the entrance didn't move. She was wearing a charcoal blazer and carrying a leather portfolio that had her initials pressed into the corner. She looked at him with the stillness of someone who had made a decision a long time ago about how she would respond to moments like this one. "I have access to this building," she said. Her voice was quiet, even the kind of quiet that doesn't need volume. Pruitt looked up then. He looked at her the way he always looked, the way that takes a person and reduces them to a surface. Courthouse staff enters through the East Wing. You want to work here, you know that already. If you don't work here. He smiled when he said it. Not a kind smile. She counted. 1. Unlawful obstruction of access to a public building. 2. Discriminatory application of a procedure. 3. The smile. "I'll wait," she said. Behind her, a woman in a gray peacoat pulled out her phone. She angled it slightly, not toward them but not away either. A man in a delivery uniform looked over, assessed the situation, went back to signing his clipboard. A retired couple near the elevator exchanged a glance that said this again, and stepped into the elevator and let the doors close. Pruitt snorted. He picked up his granola bar. He said something under his breath that the woman heard clearly. He had no idea. The woman he had just told to move along was the Honorable Denise A. Cartwright, Associate Justice of the 8th District Court of Appeals of Ohio, serving her 14th year on the bench. She had been assigned as the senior presiding judge for that morning's emergency session, a session involving 3 civil rights cases, 11 attorneys, and 47 people whose fates were scheduled to be decided in the next 6 hours. Every person in that building was waiting for her. In 40 minutes, the courtroom would be called to order. In 40 minutes, every officer, attorney, clerk, and spectator in the building would stand when Denise Cartwright walked through those doors. In 40 minutes, Dale Pruitt would understand what he had done. He just didn't know it yet. But this story doesn't start here. Rewind 22 years. Denise Aisha Cartwright was 29 years old when she passed the Ohio bar examination on her first attempt. She was the daughter of a woman named Gloria Cartwright, who had worked the 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift at a commercial laundry in East Cleveland for 31 years. Gloria kept a laminated index card taped to the inside of the front door of their house on Bainbridge Avenue. It read, "You will outwork them. You will outlast them. You will not explain yourself to them." Denise read it every morning going out and every evening coming in until she left for college at 18. She could still recite it in her sleep. She graduated from Howard University summa cum laude. She took her law degree from Case Western Reserve on a full academic scholarship. She clerked for a federal judge who told her at the end of her clerkship that she was the most analytically precise mind he had supervised in 32 years on the federal bench. She joined the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office. She argued 17 cases before the Court of Appeals before she was 35. She was appointed to the bench at 41. Confirmed by a margin that surprised everyone who hadn't been paying attention. In her chambers, on the credenza behind her desk, there was a framed photograph. In it, a younger Denise Cartwright stood in front of the Howard University Law School entrance, gown and cap. A woman standing beside her with calloused hands and a smile so wide it made your chest hurt. Gloria Cartwright died of a stroke 8 months before Denise was appointed to the bench. She never saw it. Denise had looked at that photograph every morning for 14 years. That morning, she had driven to the courthouse in her own car. She was going to pick up a brief, review a scheduling note, and be home in time for lunch. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening. The kind of morning that does not warrant interference from anyone. Officer Dale Pruitt had worked courthouse security for 9 years. In those 9 years, he had received 2 commendations for attentiveness and was named Security Officer of the Year in 2019. His supervisor described him as dependable, assertive, and effective. His personnel file also contained 6 complaints, filed by visitors, staff, and attorneys, alleging that Pruitt selectively and repeatedly obstructed black professionals entering the courthouse in ways that were not applied to white visitors. All 6 complaints had been reviewed by the courthouse's internal security liaison, who was Pruitt's former partner's brother-in-law. All 6 had been dismissed as unsubstantiated. Pruitt was the product of a system that had rewarded him for exactly this behavior. Inside the lobby, Denise stood. She did not sit on the bench near the door. She did not lean against the wall. She stood with her portfolio in her hands and her weight evenly placed, and she watched. Pruitt had gone back to his phone. 3 attorneys entered through the main entrance 5 minutes after she had been stopped. All 3 were white. All 3 were waved through with a nod. One of them, a man in his late 50s with a leather satchel and reading glasses pushed up on his forehead, glanced at Denise as he passed, slowed slightly, and then kept walking. She counted. 4. Unequal application of access procedure to persons of the same professional class on the basis of race. At 8:47 a.m., a woman in a gray skirt suit entered through the east wing door, spotted Denise, and stopped dead. Her name was Miriam Osei Bonsu. She was the senior clerk of the 8th District Court of Appeals and had worked for Judge Cartwright for 6 years. She took in the scene in approximately 2 seconds, turned, and walked directly to the security desk. "Officers," she said, "do you know who this is?" Pruitt looked up. "I told her to wait for. This is Judge Denise Cartwright. She is the presiding judge for the emergency session in courtroom 7, which begins in 38 minutes. Miriam's voice was the voice of someone who had dealt with a version of this before and had no patience left. She has been standing here while you waved in 3 attorneys who are appearing before her today. Pruitt's jaw moved. Nothing came out of it that made sense. "Judge Cartwright," Miriam said, turning, "I'm so sorry. Please come through." Denise Cartwright walked past the security desk without looking at Dale Pruitt. She did not need to look at him. She had counted 5 violations, and she had been in this building long enough to know exactly what happened next. She had already decided not to let it go. By the time Denise reached her chambers at 8:53 a.m., Miriam had already sent 2 messages. The first was to Robert Ashby, the courthouse administrator. The second was to Lena Vasquez, the lead investigator in the Ohio Court's Security Compliance Division, with whom Miriam had worked on a personnel matter 2 years before, and whose card was still in her desk drawer. Lena Vasquez had been building a pattern of conduct file on Cuyahoga County Courthouse security for 7 months. She had 3 prior incident reports, 2 of which named the security desk at the main entrance. She was waiting for a complainant with standing. She had just found one. At 9:31 a.m., Denise Cartwright called her session to order. Every person in courtroom 7 stood. The 3 attorneys who had walked past her in the lobby stood with them. She took her seat and looked out at the room with the same level expression she had held for 14 years, and she heard the cases before her with full attention, and she wrote notes in a precise hand, and she was entirely present. She was also thinking about what comes next. 32 minutes remained. Dale Pruitt learned what had happened at approximately 10:04 a.m. when Robert Ashby appeared at the security desk with a clipboard and a quiet, terrible expression. Ashby told Pruitt that a formal complaint had been filed with the court's Security Compliance Division. He told him that a review of lobby camera footage had been requested. He told him that the incident that morning was being treated as a potential civil rights violation under Ohio Administrative Code, and that Pruitt was being placed on administrative leave effective immediately pending investigation. Pruitt said, "She didn't tell me who she was." Ashby said nothing. She just walked in. She looked like... Pruitt stopped. The color left his face in a way that looked like the moment a person understands something they cannot unknow. "She was the judge," he said. "She was the judge," Robert Ashby said, and took the clipboard and walked away. The investigation took 11 weeks. Lena Vasquez's office reviewed footage from 14 separate dates across 9 months. They identified 8 distinct incidents in which black professionals, 3 attorneys, a court clerk, a sitting magistrate, and others were stopped, questioned, or denied immediate entry at the main security desk, while white visitors of equivalent or lower credential level were waved through. The pattern was systematic, consistent, and had been invisible to everyone above Pruitt who had looked at a complaint and decided not to look closely enough. Judge Cartwright submitted a formal written account. 7 of the people identified in the footage submitted their own accounts. 6 of them had never filed a complaint. They had assumed it would go nowhere. Dale Pruitt was terminated from his position on a Tuesday morning, 11 weeks and 3 days after he had told Denise Cartwright to move along. He surrendered his badge and his access card. His termination letter cited violation of equal access policy, failure of professional conduct, and a pattern of discriminatory enforcement confirmed by video review. He was permanently barred from employment in any Ohio State courthouse facility. The 6 prior dismissed complaints were reopened and incorporated into the record. The internal liaison who had dismissed them was placed under separate review. Pruitt lost his pension. He has not been in a courthouse since. The courthouse security protocols for the main lobby were rewritten. All courthouse staff received mandatory bias and professional conduct retraining. New complaint intake procedures were created that removed the internal liaison role and directed all complaints to an independent review body outside courthouse administration. 3 of the 8 people identified in the footage were notified directly and offered formal acknowledgement of what had happened to them. Robert Ashby, who had been in his role for 5 years and had reviewed 2 of the 6 prior complaints without escalating them, submitted a written statement acknowledging institutional failure and enrolled in an equity accountability program. He kept his position. He has not stopped thinking about the moment he handed Pruitt that clipboard. At a public session of the Ohio Courts Commission 2 months after the incident, Judge Denise Cartwright was given the opportunity to speak. She did not speak about Dale Pruitt. She spoke about the 6 people who had filed complaints and been dismissed. She spoke about the 8 people who hadn't filed at all. "I have the resources," she said. "I have the title, the institutional standing, the legal knowledge, and the documentation skills to pursue this. Most people who walk through that lobby do not. And the system that enables this behavior relies on the assumption that they won't be able to. What happened to me happens every day. It simply rarely reaches a room like this one." She paused. "If I had to announce my title to be treated with dignity, the system was already broken. It is still broken. Our work is to fix it, not for the people who have the resources to fight back, but for the people who don't." She straightened the papers in front of her. Documentation wins. Emotion loses. Evidence is everything. We have the evidence. Now, we use it. 6 months after the morning in the lobby, Denise Cartwright drove to the courthouse on an ordinary Tuesday. She parked in the lot. She carried her portfolio with her initials in the corner. She walked through the main entrance. The security officer at the desk, new, young, 6 weeks on the job, nodded at her and said, "Good morning." "Good morning," she said. She walked through. In her chambers, she set her portfolio down and looked at the photograph on the credenza for a moment. Her mother's hands. Her mother's smile. She sat down and opened the first file. Miriam Ose Bonsu, in the office next door, was reviewing footage flagged for a complaint that had come in the previous week. A different lobby. A different officer. A different person who had been told to wait when they should have been waved through. Denise heard the tap of Miriam's keyboard. She heard the quiet of the building before the day started. She turned a page. The work didn't end this morning. Someone has to be watching. If this story made you feel something, anger or recognition, or the need to do something with what you know, share it with someone. Stories like Denise's don't spread themselves. We spread them. Drop a comment below. Have you ever watched something wrong happen and felt powerless to speak up? What did you do? What do you wish you had? Subscribe for more stories that put names to the systems and honor the people who refuse to let them run unchecked. Every view is a vote for accountability. Every comment is a conversation that matters. Because until the system changes, someone has to be watching.